If this story left you speechless, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if your future in-laws tried to take over your life and your home? Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Are you in Texas? New York? Maybe watching from overseas? And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, because tomorrow's story, let's just say, it might be even more shocking than this one. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next chapter. I gave my daughter a dream home, then her fiancé's family tried to take it over like it was theirs. When Rebecca Carter turned 26, her parents surprised her with the ultimate wedding gift, a fully renovated 2,500 square foot house nestled in a quiet suburb just outside Seattle. It had taken nearly 8 months and over $350,000 to bring the old property to life: modern kitchen, hardwood floors, custom fixtures, and even a wraparound porch that her father, Mark, personally helped design. It wasn't just a house, it was a symbol of love, legacy, and the start of something new. Rebecca was engaged to Dylan Hayes, a man who, on the surface, appeared polite, respectful, and thoughtful. Her parents, Mark and Linda Carter, had their doubts. Dylan didn't have a job that could support a home, no car of his own, and certainly no ring. Rebecca had even secretly bought her own engagement ring just to avoid awkward questions. But she loved him, or at least, she believed she did. And her parents, despite their reservations, decided to support her. After all, love sometimes needs room to grow. But what no one expected was what happened before the wedding even took place. One sunny afternoon, Rebecca's parents drove out to the new home, eager to give her a tour of the finished space. But as they pulled into the driveway, something was off. There were cars, 3 of them, already parked out front. Mark frowned. He hadn't given anyone keys. And Rebecca wasn't supposed to be there yet. The moment they stepped inside, their confusion turned to disbelief. The house was occupied. Dylan's entire family, his parents, his brother Travis, his sister-in-law Jenna, and even their young son, had already moved in. Furniture had been rearranged, shoes were scattered near the front door, and the smell of cigarette smoke lingered in the air. Rebecca's mother gasped as she spotted Dylan's father lounging on the living room couch with his boots up, a football game blaring on the TV like he'd lived there for years. And then came the kicker. "We'll take the master bedroom," Ruth Hayes, Dylan's mother, said casually as she walked past them, eyeing the open kitchen. "It gets the best light, and my back's been killing me. Besides, Rebecca's young. She can take one of the smaller rooms." Rebecca, who had just arrived moments later, stood frozen in the doorway. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She had no idea they were coming, let alone moving in. Dylan avoided eye contact. He shrugged helplessly, saying something about it being temporary, just until everyone got settled. Mark's jaw clenched. Linda stepped forward, her voice calm but icy. "This isn't a hotel," she said. "And it's certainly not a boarding house." But the Hayeses didn't flinch. In fact, they made themselves even more comfortable, demanding changes to the home, questioning the neighborhood, even joking that Travis and his family could move in too, since the house was so big. That day, what was supposed to be a gift of love turned into the opening act of a nightmare, and Rebecca's first glimpse into the family she was about to marry into. Rebecca stood in the middle of the kitchen, trying to process what had just happened. Her dream home, gifted by her parents as a symbol of new beginnings, had been overtaken without warning. And Dylan, the man she was supposed to marry, had said nothing to stop it. At first, she gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he didn't know his parents planned to stay. Maybe it was all some strange misunderstanding. But that hope evaporated quickly. The next morning, Rebecca returned with breakfast, hoping to have a calm conversation. Instead, she found Dylan's father, Alan, shirtless in the kitchen, frying eggs like he owned the place. His muddy boots sat on the counter next to a carton of orange juice. And Ruth, his mother, was already flipping through Rebecca's mail like it was her own. "Morning," Ruth said, not looking up. "We need to talk about the second bedroom. Travis called. He's ready to move in next week." It'll be better for Luca, he deserves a backyard to run around in. Rebecca blinked. Wait, what? Ruth's tone shifted. You're young, you don't have kids yet. What do you even need all that space for? It's selfish to keep an entire house to yourself when family could use it. Rebecca felt the words slam into her chest like a brick. Selfish? This was her home. A gift. Paid in full by her parents. And yet somehow, in less than 48 hours, she was being cast as the unreasonable one for not wanting to live with her fiancé's entire family. That evening, she tried to talk to Dylan. They just need time, he mumbled. My parents don't have much, you know that. They've always lived paycheck to paycheck. This house, it's a blessing for them. For them? Rebecca snapped. Dylan, this house was a gift from my parents to me. Not your entire family. He looked at her, eyes pleading. Just be patient. Once we're married, it's all ours anyway. What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. Rebecca stared at him, stunned. So that's the plan? Marry me, then claim the house for your whole family? He paused, and that pause told her everything. The next day, Alan gathered everyone in the living room like it was some kind of family meeting. He pointed at a framed photo on the mantel, Rebecca and Dylan, taken on their engagement night. This place should go in Dylan's name, Alan said, puffing on a cigarette. You know, to protect the family. That way Luca has a stable address when he starts school here. Mark and Linda arrived minutes later, having gotten a call from Rebecca. When they walked in and saw Alan with his feet up on the coffee table and Ruth barking instructions to a contractor about removing that ugly gate out front, it was the last straw. Mark's eyes met his daughter's. No words needed. He saw the exhaustion in her face. And for the first time, Rebecca realized these weren't future in-laws. They were invaders in disguise. And she was done playing host. The silence in the living room was so thick you could feel it pressing against your skin. Rebecca stood between her parents and Dylan's family, her fists clenched at her sides, heart racing like a war drum. Alan leaned back on the couch, cigarette smoke curling around his smug smile, while Ruth crossed her arms, nodding as if she'd just solved the household budget crisis. So, Alan said, exhaling. Travis and Jenna will move in next week. Dylan can take the guest room until you two are married, then we'll figure out the rest. We're family now. That means sharing. Mark Carter's jaw flexed. Linda's lips tightened. Rebecca didn't even look at her parents, she already knew what they were thinking. The real question was whether she was ready to do what they hoped she would. Then Ruth piped up again. And Rebecca, honey, when you're not working, it'd be great if you could help around the house. Just basic things, laundry, groceries, cooking. Dylan works hard, and we're not as young as we used to be. Rebecca blinked, stunned. You want me to cook and clean for all of you? Ruth shrugged. Of course. You're about to be a Hayes. This is what wives do. We all pull our weight around here. And just like that, something in Rebecca snapped. She turned to Dylan, her fiancé, the man she thought she knew, and asked the question that had been burning inside her for days. Is this really what you want? Dylan looked up from his phone, startled. What? She didn't flinch. Do you expect me to give up my space, serve your family, and stay silent while they take over my life? Dylan glanced nervously at his parents, then back at Rebecca. It's just temporary. Don't make it a big deal. Rebecca stepped back, shaking her head. That's your answer? And then, clear as glass, she said the words that shattered everything. This engagement is over. The room froze. Linda gasped softly. Mark exhaled, relief flickering behind his eyes. But the Hayes? They exploded. You're kidding, Alan barked, standing. You'd walk away from a man like Dylan over some minor family issues? Ruth's voice rose like a siren. Ungrateful. You think you're better than us because your parents handed you a house? You'll regret this, girl. Rebecca stood tall, her voice like ice. No. What I regret is not seeing the truth sooner. Dylan moved toward her, reaching for her arm. Rebecca, don't do this. You always overreact when you're emotional. She yanked her arm away. I'm not emotional. I'm done. That was the moment Mark stepped in. His voice was low, deadly calm. You heard her. Get out of my daughter's house. Alan took one step forward, but Mark didn't budge. I said, get out. That night, as the Hayes family gathered their things and stumbled out the front door, Rebecca stood at the top of the stairs, watching without a single tear. She hadn't just ended an engagement. She had reclaimed her life. It had been 3 weeks since Rebecca called off the engagement, and life was finally starting to feel normal again. She'd gone back to work, poured herself into new marketing campaigns, and even started sleeping peacefully again. The house was quiet, calm, and completely hers. Dylan and his family were gone, and with them, the chaos that had clouded what should have been the happiest time of her life. But Dylan wasn't done. One evening, Rebecca came home to find an email sitting in her inbox with a subject line that made her stomach tighten. Let's settle this. She clicked it. Inside was a short message from Dylan and an attachment. The message read, since you ended things, I think it's only fair that you reimburse me for the expenses I covered during our relationship. No hard feelings. Just business. She opened the spreadsheet. What she saw made her laugh out loud. Every coffee. Every Uber. Every cheap dinner. It was all listed. $3.50 iced coffee, January 12, $16.25 dinner at Chipotle, February 9, $20 Valentine's flowers, $200 birthday gift card line after line, month after month. At the bottom, a grand total, $2,863.64. He even added 36 cents. Rebecca forwarded it to her parents, not out of stress, but sheer disbelief. Mark Carter read it 3 times before muttering, "You've got to be kidding me." But Dylan wasn't done humiliating himself. The next morning, Rebecca walked into her office building, coffee in hand, ready for a regular Monday. But something felt off. People were whispering in the lobby, glancing at their phones, then at the front doors. Then she saw them. Dylan, Ruth, and Alan. Standing in the middle of her workplace entrance, holding up a poster-sized sign with bold red letters, Rebecca Carter owes us money, pay what you took. Her jaw dropped. Ruth was shouting about justice, while Alan waved the spreadsheet around like it was legal evidence. Dylan stood awkwardly in the back, face pale, avoiding eye contact with anyone. And the employees? Phones were out. Videos were recording. Some were laughing. Others looked confused. That's when Rebecca's mother, Linda, stepped off the elevator, took one look at the scene, and said calmly, "Let's put an end to this nonsense." She marched outside, heels clicking with every step, and pulled out her checkbook. With complete poise, she wrote a check for $3,000, then handed it to Dylan. "There," she said. "Paid in full." But then she leaned in, her voice sharp and clear. "Now let's talk about what you owe." She listed everything Rebecca had given Dylan: a $1,200 iPhone for his birthday, a $1,500 hospital gift when his father fell ill, groceries, vacations, gas money, none of which were included in his spreadsheet. "You walked away with a free ride," Linda said. "So before you demand pennies, maybe tally up what you took." The crowd erupted in applause. Dylan's face turned scarlet. Ruth tried to argue, but Rebecca stepped forward. "If you want to keep playing games," she said, "we'll take this to your company. Let's see how your boss feels about public harassment." Dylan froze. And for the second time in a month, he walked away. But this time, without a shred of dignity. After the stunt Dylan pulled at her workplace, Rebecca knew one thing for sure: she was never looking back. The restraining order was filed the next day. Her company's legal team backed her without hesitation, forwarding all footage, screenshots, and witness statements to authorities. Dylan had embarrassed himself, yes, but more importantly, he had crossed a line. And now, there would be consequences. For a while, things were quiet. Rebecca threw herself into work. She started leading larger projects at her agency, presenting at regional conferences, and earning praise from industry leaders who had once seen her as the new girl in marketing. But she wasn't just working harder, she was thriving. Then came the Seattle Business Summit. Her firm chose her to present on emerging trends in digital branding. Rebecca walked onto that stage in a navy blue suit, shoulders back, voice steady. When she finished her pitch, the room broke into applause. But one person in the audience stood out. Grant Bennett, 31. Co-founder of East Bay Capital. MBA from Stanford. A reputation for being sharp, ethical, and brutally focused, but with a warmth that set him apart from other high-flying execs. After her presentation, Grant approached her, not with a business card, but with a simple compliment. That was one of the most grounded and forward-thinking pitches I've seen in a while. I'd love to hear more about your process sometime. No games. No charm overload. Just sincerity. Over the following weeks, they ran into each other at a few more industry events. Coffee turned into casual dinners. Business conversations drifted into personal stories. And for the first time in a long time, Rebecca felt safe. Not impressed. Not flattered. Just safe. And when Grant finally invited her to meet his parents over dinner at their lakeside home in Napa, it was nothing like the Hayes disaster. His mother, elegant but approachable, cooked a small meal and asked Rebecca about her own dreams, not about her wife potential. His father simply said, "Grant speaks very highly of you," and nothing more. There were no passive-aggressive comments, no probing questions, and absolutely no talk of bedrooms or property titles. It was the kind of evening she never realized she deserved. But good news, as always, traveled fast. A week later, a blurry photo surfaced online, her and Grant, walking hand in hand outside a tech conference. It wasn't a tabloid shot, but someone sent it to Dylan. And like clockwork, he reappeared. This time, waiting outside her office building, eyes tired, face hollow. "You just replaced me," he said bitterly. "You think you're better than me now?" Rebecca didn't blink. "No. I've always been better than the way you treated me." That's when Grant walked up beside her. Calm. Steady. He looked Dylan in the eye and said, "She doesn't owe you anything. Not a word. Not a memory. And definitely not another minute of her time." Dylan flinched. He turned away and disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by the very world he never knew how to belong to. And as Rebecca walked away, hand in hand with someone who respected her, she realized something: the best revenge isn't loud. It's living well and never looking back. If you've made it this far, thank you for taking the time to listen to Rebecca's story, a journey of betrayal, courage, and rising above it all. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone take advantage of your kindness? Have you been in a relationship where love was one-sided, or had to deal with in-laws who pushed boundaries too far? Maybe you've witnessed someone walk away from what looked like a perfect match on the outside, because they knew they deserved better on the inside. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts, whether it's your own experience, a friend's, or even just how this story made you feel. And while you're at it, tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing this community grow all around the world. Your voice matters here. And who knows? Tomorrow's story might just be inspired by something you share. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because there's another powerful story coming your way tomorrow, and trust me, you don't want to miss it.